The highest court in the land said to Donald Trump, "You can't hand out no tariffs. That's not your job." And Donald Trump said, "Who are you to tell me I can't?" When the highest court in the land tells you don't have the authority to tariff people, and you turn around and slap a new 15% tariff under a different law, that's not just about trade policy, that's about a power play. And Donald Trump is playing chicken with the Supreme Court. And the question is not about whether you like tariffs or not. The question is, who gets to tax the world? Now let's break this down. Supreme Court just ruled that the president cannot use IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, to impose sweeping global tariffs. They said, no. That law is meant for national emergencies, sir. Sanctions, sir. Foreign threats, sir. Serious crisis level stuff, sir. The court basically said, this ain't what that law is for, bruh. And more importantly, they said something even better. Tariffs are taxes, and the Constitution gives Congress the power to tax, and only them. That's the heart of the matter. This wasn't about trade. This was about authority. Now here's where it gets interesting. Within hours of that ruling, the president was like, "Oh, I ain't even trying to hear it." He announced a new global tariff under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. First 10%, then the next day 15%. So if you're watching this play out, it looks like this. Courts say no, Trump say fine. Different law, same direction. Now let's talk about Section 122, shall we? This law allows temporary import restrictions if the U.S. is dealing with a serious balance of payments problems. In plain language, that means if too much money is flowing out of the country compared to what's coming in. But here's the catch. It's temporary, 150 days. After that, Congress has to step in. And it wasn't designed to be a long-term global revenue machine. It was meant for short-term corrections. Now, here's the problem that Donald Trump got. Donald Trump kept telling us he bringing in billions and billions and millions and millions. We making hand over fist money. 4 days, we be taking in billions and trillions and millions and all this. So if we bringing in trillions and billions and trillions and billions, where is the serious balance of payment problem? There ain't none. So you done burnt your own self up with that Section 122. But let's continue. Back in 1974, when this law was written, a balance of payments deficit meant something very specific. The U.S. was dealing with currency pressures and gold outflows. Different world, different system, different time. Today, global finance doesn't work like that. Private capital markets handle trade imbalances constantly. And right now, the dollar is strong, very strong. The Treasury Secretary has even said a strong dollar policy is the goal. So here's what legal experts are already lining up to argue about. If there isn't a real balance of payments crisis, which it ain't, because Donald Trump was saying, we bringing in billions, trillions, brilliant, trillion, we just winning every day. If there isn't a real balance of payment crisis, if the dollar is not collapsing, if this is not tied to some coordinated international currency effort, then is Section 122 being stretched to cover Donald Trump's supposed need for tariffs? That's where round two begins, because the Supreme Court didn't just slap down IEEPA on a technicality. They invoked what's called the major questions doctrine. That's basically meaning if you're doing something with huge economic impact, you need crystal clear authority from Congress. You can't just imply it. And they also reference something called the non-delegation doctrine, meaning Congress can't just hand the president unlimited tariff power without clear limitations. So now the question becomes, does Section 122 clearly authorize a 15% global tariff for the purpose it's being used for? Or is that another stretch? Now, here's the real world impact. Legal challenges won't happen overnight. It could take a year or more before courts fully resolve it. In the meantime, uncertainty. Businesses don't know which tariffs will stick. Importers don't know if they'll get refund. According to Blessing, y'all ain't getting no refund. I ain't getting no money back. You bump that. When the court tells them to pay it back, they'll pay it back. Otherwise, you ain't getting no money back. That's what he said. That's what he said. Blessing said it. Consumers don't know if prices are about to jump again. We don't know nothing. Trade partners don't know what they're negotiating against. And uncertainty is expensive, though. Now let's go back to the phrase, boss move. If by boss move, somebody means politically bold, sure, it's bold, but bold and constitutional are not the same thing. This isn't about whether tariffs are good or bad. You can support tariffs and still ask legal questions. You can oppose tariffs and still acknowledge strategic maneuvering. The bigger issue here is executive power. When the court says you don't have authority under one law and the response is to switch laws instead of going through Congress, that's a signal. It says the policy goal isn't changing. The legal vehicle is, and the courts are watching you. So how will this 15% tariff fare in the court system? It's not a slam dunk. Section 122 gives some authority, but it's very, very narrow. It's temporary, and it's tied to specific economic conditions. If plaintiffs argue that conditions don't exist or that this is really about raising broad revenue, we're right back in front of the judges. And I believe Section 122 does not apply to this situation. So you're going to be back in front of the Supreme Court or the court, the lower courts, however they want to do it. This is round 2, and it's bigger than imports. It's about who controls the economic trigger in this country, Congress or the executive branch operating at the edge of delegated authority. That's right. So when you hear IEPA versus Section 122, don't tune out, honey. That's not legal trivia. That's the battlefield. And depending on how the courts rule next, it could redefine how far any president can go on trade policy without Congress ever voting on it. Now, that's the real conversation.